Let's go! Major Burns enters the transfer portal. Will Ed Orgeron use his final slot and get the former Baton Rouge native? But here's the thing. Major Burns was once an LSU commit for the class of 2020. What happened there? We're going to discuss a few different things today, and some of it is clear and some of it is not. Actually, a lot of it is unclear, which makes this story so fascinating. So, obviously, like this video, let's get to it. Let's start with Major Burns' college career. It has not really been anything, really. He was decent, I guess you could say, at Georgia, but he was only a freshman, and Georgia just had a defensive back get drafted in the first round. In fact, they had multiple defensive backs get drafted, and it seems as if this would be Major Burns' opportunity to move up the depth chart. Well, Georgia is still loaded at defensive back, and Major Burns wanted to leave. And this is what you'll see more of nowadays, with players feeling they are more mobile now than ever. If they are the slightest bit of uncomfortable, they're going to test the waters, and I totally get it. So Major Burns is one of those guys. Is this the guy that you should spend your final slot on? I'll get to that, but let's first discuss what actually happened at first with LSU. So Major Burns was committed to LSU, and it wasn't the smoothest because he was committed to some other schools, and then he decided to go with LSU. But then, right there at the end, he decided to decommit from LSU, which is where this story gets fascinating. Now, here's Major Burns' recruiting profile, and you see he is a top 200 player and a top 15 safety, and he is from Baton Rouge, Louisiana. So we know the history of Louisiana defensive backs, and he is from your own backyard. But there is this term in recruiting called processing, which essentially means LSU, or just any school, has a player that is committed to that school, but the school decides to pull their scholarship and go elsewhere with that scholarship. So in other words, you are being cut before signing day. Now, I want to be totally clear with processing. We don't know if a recruit officially or objectively has ever been processed, because offers are very subjective and they are not official or non-binding. Is that the right word I would use there? There is no written agreement until you actually sign on with the school. So different reporters have different takes on what actually happened with Major Burns. Some people say he did have a change of heart and decided to go to Georgia at the last second. Others say LSU wanted to pull their scholarship because their class of 2020 was loaded and they wanted to use the scholarship on someone else. I don't know exactly what happened. However, this is what I would say regarding processing. I don't like it. I think if you're committed and you've been committed for a while, you should not have your scholarships pulled. However, if you are a recruit, understand when you commit to a school, understand that they can pull the offer anytime between then and signing day. So understand that is a risk every time you commit to an elite school. So, I just think it's a very interesting topic. I don't want to speak on behalf of Burns or LSU because this is obviously very subjective and very ambiguous. So let me share my opinion on this. If a top 250 player from Baton Rouge, that is the dream school for every kid who has ever grown up in Louisiana. I would say 99% of kids that grow up in Louisiana want to go to LSU, particularly kids in Baton Rouge. You should never process a top 250 player from your own state. I mean, he is Louisiana's number 7 rated recruit. So in every recruiting cycle, you have 25 slots. That one of those slots should go to top 10 Louisiana guys. So especially at a position like defensive back, knowing the history of Louisiana defensive backs, knowing how important they are in this modern day age of football, I would have not ever processed him under any circumstance, but unless it's something extreme or character related or grades related or something like that would make you decide to do something otherwise that we don't know about. But based on some reporters that I've read, that there is no more bad blood, and if there is mutual interest between LSU and Major Burns, they would be more than happy to use their final slot for the class of 2021 on Major Burns. Building depth at that position would make a lot of sense. I know I've mentioned this a few other times. I'm really happy that Kendall Danielson, that's who LSU was going to use their final slot on. He decided to go to Oklahoma State. I would much rather a guy that has been in a college program, been in a college weight room like Major Burns, take this final slot over another high school recruit. So, yes, I would take Major Burns as well, simply because he is a former 250 top defensive back from your own home state. So, yeah, if this works out, I totally get it. Would he start immediately? Well, that's not the right question you should be asking. The bigger question is, could he even play this season? And the answer to that is maybe. It depends on how these transfer rules actually work. Now, I'm going to open up the comment section. It's always open to anything. But if any of you know how these transfer rules actually work better than I do, please enlighten me, because we are still awaiting official confirmation if players can go from one SEC school to another and be able to play immediately. Now, there's different waiver rules that have already existed that allows for immediate eligibility, but as we go through these new transfer rules with the NCAA and this change in allowing players to be immediately eligible, we still need more clarity amongst, can players go from school to school and be immediately ready? You know, it's still up in the air. Now, obviously, there could be some magical waiver that allows Major Burns to play right away. Those have always existed. So if LSU were to use a final slot on him, it is still very unclear if he would be able to play. And on top of that, that's obviously the most important thing. Could he pick up Durante Jones's defense quick enough to be a starter and or contributor in year one? You know, that's obviously an entirely different issue. So, yeah, you know, that would be something pretty fascinating to know. Yeah. So, as far as him contributing in year one, it's maybe. And another question to ask is he even the best safety in the portal at all? There is a Donovan Kaufman who is from Rummel High School in New Orleans, Louisiana. And Rummel, of course, produced Jamar Chase. It produced Coy Moore, produced Logan Diggs, and Donovan Kaufman, who was not a highly rated player coming out of Rummel, but he looked pretty good for Vanderbilt in the few games that he played, albeit it was just 2. He put on a show against LSU. He was one of the few bright spots for Vanderbilt. He is an elite athlete, a guy that, you know, has provided some value on special teams for Vanderbilt, and he entered the portal after Derek Mason was fired. So, yeah, this could actually be the better option. Donovan Kaufman's still in the portal. I know Auburn had some pretty good momentum with him, but, you know, he's still available. Is that someone that LSU could go after? Is the safety position even the most important position in the portal? I'm not so sure, because LSU has some other glaring issues on this team, most notably on the offensive line. And we discussed this recently in a video regarding the starting quarterback position and the offensive line. So, yeah, I mean, I'm not so sure if safety is a position. Maybe Jay Ward is the answer. Maybe Jordan Toles took that huge step forward. He got that coveted safety spot in the class of 2020 over Kaufman and over Burns. So it is a pretty interesting thing how you work with numbers and whatnot. And that's going to be the future of college football. Now that more guys are entering the portal, should you open up more slots? Because if LSU had taken Kendall Daniels just a few weeks ago, they would have no slots. They would have no spots available for either one of these guys. So, how do you manage a roster? That's why they hired guys like Austin Thomas, and, he's hired, Mason Smith and Junior Belton to help out with that as well. So LSU's actually invested more into this future of college football that's very unclear. We need more clarity regarding the future transfer rules. Can you go from SEC school to SEC school and be ready to go? How big of the learning curve is it going to be, especially at defensive back for players that go from school to school? So it is a very, very, very fascinating topic. And then, of course, you have LSU's current safety roster, which is, of course, Todd Harris and Jay Ward. And this was actually the piece that I was going to release today, our defensive depth chart piece. I'm going to push it back because I want to see how this portal actually plays out. I might release it anyway, but still, these are the backups, Derek Davis Jr. and Sage Ryan. So, in Matthew Langlois, Cam Lewis, and Xavier Fountain also on the team. But, Derek Davis Jr. and Sage Ryan are the two highest-ranked safeties from this class of 2021. Sage Ryan, of course, is the sexier name out of Louisiana, a 5-star, and we've seen from the last 2 seasons a 5-star as a true freshman for LSU not only play right away but exceed expectations in Derek Stingley Jr. and, of course, Elias Ricks. Can Sage Ryan do the same thing? And then, of course, you have Derek Davis Jr., who was there in the spring. So, do I think the safety room could use another body? Yes. Do I think the safety room in its current form could be good enough to get you to a college football playoff next season? Yes, as well. Especially under Durante Jones's tutelage as a NFL safeties coach. I think that will definitely help out the guys that are currently on the roster as well. Boom! Let me know what you think. Let me know what you know. I'm still learning a lot of this as well. And yeah, we'll keep all the fun just rolling along. Don't forget, shirts, merch, live streams. You guys know that already, right? And don't forget, we got that Elias Ricks film study. Reserve your spot right now, 5:30 on Wednesday. We'll go into the mind of one of the best defensive backs in college football. It is Power Hour LSU. Boom! I think we're doing tuna steaks tonight. Let's go. Woo!